What happens when a country's entire future, its growth, is being held back by a simple lack of power? Well, that's exactly the story we're diving in today. The story of how one pioneering company, Kohinoor Energy, stepped up to help solve a nationwide crisis and, literally, power an economy. Okay, let's really think about this for a second. Imagine you're in charge of a country. The lights keep going out, your factories are sitting idle, economic growth is just stalling. And the problem is huge. You don't have enough electricity. So what do? How do you fix something that big, and I mean fast? All right, so let's set the scene. We're going back to the early 1990s. For Pakistan, this was a time of massive potential, but the whole nation was being held hostage by a really critical and fast-growing power crisis. And look, this wasn't just some minor inconvenience, a few flickering lights. This was a serious roadblock to economic development. The government knew it couldn't build enough power plants on its own, not fast enough to keep up. They needed a new game plan, a totally new way to bring in both money and electricity. And this is where things get really interesting. Their solution was something called the 1994 Power Policy. It was a game changer. Instead of the government trying to do it all, they basically threw the doors wide open. They sent out a huge invitation to private companies, both from Pakistan and from around the world, saying, "Come here, build power plants, and help us solve this crisis." So what did this new policy actually create? Well, it sparked the rise of a whole new kind of company in Pakistan, one specifically designed to tackle this massive energy challenge. They're called independent power producers, or you'll usually hear them called IPPs. The whole idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. A private company builds and runs a power plant, and they have just one job and one customer, the national grid. They make the power, and the government's utility company sends it out across the country. And who was one of the very first to jump in to answer that call? A brand new venture, Kohinoor Energy Limited, or KEL for short. They were true pioneers under this new policy. Okay, but here's what makes this story really fascinating. KLE wasn't just some local startup. It was this incredible international partnership. On one hand, you've got the Saigols group, a total powerhouse in Pakistani industry with a long history of building successful businesses. And on the other hand, you have the Toyota Tsusho Corporation from Japan, bringing in the cash, that crucial foreign investment, and world-class technical know-how. It was like the perfect recipe, right? Local strength meets global expertise. So, you've got the dream team, but what did they actually build? Come on, let's take a look inside the KEL power plant. The final result was a power station that could pump out a net capacity of 124 megawatts. Now, that might just sound like a number, but it was a number that was going to have a huge impact. But what does that number even mean in the real world? Well, it's enough steady, reliable, 24/7 power to support the massive industrial heart of Lahore, one of Pakistan's most important economic engines. So we're not talking about just a little bit of extra juice here. This was foundational stuff. And how they did it was just so smart. It all starts with these 8 giant diesel generators. But here's the real kicker. All of that waste heat that those massive engines produce, instead of just letting it float off into the air, they capture it. They use that captured heat to create steam, which then runs a second turbine, generating an extra 8 megawatts of electricity without burning a single extra drop of fuel. It's literally getting bonus power for free. Talk about efficiency. So yeah, the engineering was impressive. But the real story, the lasting legacy of KEL, goes way beyond just the technology. Just look at their journey. They were founded in 1994, and just 3 years later, which is incredibly fast, by the way, they were up and running, feeding power into the national grid. Fast forward 20 years in 2017, and they're winning awards for corporate excellence from the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And even today, they're focused on modernizing, making sure they can keep delivering that reliable power for years to come. So when you put it all together, what's their real legacy? Well, first off, they proved a huge point, that a private company could absolutely manage these massive nation-building projects in Pakistan. Second, that partnership with Japan, it became a total blueprint for successful foreign investment. And maybe most importantly, for decades, they have just been a super consistent, super reliable source of power, selling every single megawatt to their one and only customer, the national utility WAPDA. In the end, their own motto really says it all. Serving the nation through power industry. It perfectly captures what this company was all about. It wasn't just built to be a business, it was built to be a solution. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other huge challenges could be solved when the right partners come together to innovate and to power a country forward?